Well, hey everybody, good day. Today is Sunday, November 12th, 2023 at 12:56 local. And feel inspired to vlog. I tried to yesterday and I just didn't have a damn thing to say and I turned it off. Today, full of cool shit to talk about. So, as it's Sunday, it seems appropriate to dig into the really good wisdom stuff. Before I do that, I want to sort of frame though for context that later I want to refer to as I dig into this. Couple things. So this week, the way I finance this operation of State Copy Pod is by playing the game. Which is, for me, I love video games as a kid. I loved all games. I've always been a strategy guy, a guy who's, I don't know, I've mentioned this in my podcast, not, like there's no brag in it. I'm trying to do state capture. I'm trying to well describe how my brain works. When I was like in third grade, so a year above my kiddo right now, there was like a elementary school championship Connect 4 tournament. And I won that tournament. In third grade, I was beating the sixth graders. There's no brag in it. It's just kind of like, I love games. I love looking at systems, studying all the rules closely, and then figuring out a way to gamify them, and then sort of rig it to where I always get my cake and eat it too, where it's like always being able to. I never really mastered chess, but I was, and I mentioned this before, I was like the captain of our chess team, but it was a really small school and we didn't practice. So we just got destroyed after the first tournament. But, yeah, I am hardwired for curiosity to go see things as a game, figure out how they work, and then sort of just rig them in my favor. And so when my reflexes got too slow for doing that in video games, I had to go find a new game. So I switched to macro and trading and all of that. Back in the video games days, I played World of Warcraft, like in my 20s, early 20s. And throughout, actually, I played that probably from about 2004 when it came out to probably, 20, would have been about 2013. Played the hell out of it. And I loved it. And I love the game within the game. I love the economy of that video game. It's actually, all of this stuff it's apples and apples. People don't think it is, but it totally is. It's like you study market dynamics in any system, and you look for patterns. And when you identify patterns, you position yourself such that you can capitalize on some forecast you're making. And it's fun. It's totally fun. It's like one of my favorite things to do. I don't do it really for money, or like in WoW, I never really was that into the money of it. I like just the game of trying to make a big stack of gold so that I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't want to go out and do all the BS tasks. I wanted to go rig my character for doing, having all the coolest gear for PvP and for raiding, big co-op style fights with big monsters. And I loved that. And I never wanted to worry about money. So what's hilarious is those skills are directly corollary to markets. Like you can just go read all of the in WoW, you'd also do this thing called like min-maxing, where you're studying all the dynamics of a character type you're playing. And I mean, you're reading blogs on how people are doing different strategies to maximize their damage output per second. And it was always, my favorite game was to go into those raids and be number one on the damage charts. I wanted max there every time. And I was a lot, you know, like sometimes somebody'd find some new strategy or they'd rebalance the game to where my character class couldn't do it. And then I'd just level up one of the other ones really fast and I'd gear them and then I'd be back top of the charts. And I love it. It's fun. You know, it's really like, for me, that's how I view markets generally. But I don't put a lot of attention on it. A lot of people, this is their whole life, and they're looking for mastery. I don't, and by the way, I don't disparage that. I have the highest respect for them. I rely on those people massively to play my game, which is like the half-assed, okay, I'm going to go read your TLDR on what to do after you painstakingly go through and do all the hard work. What's cool about now with YouTube, with this, all these people, they have a direct financial incentive to go out and to, like when I look at Raoul Paul building a media empire, when I look at the Blockworks guys building their own sort of competing empire, and then I look at all of their casting characters they're always interviewing, I know these people like they're my friends. They don't have a clue who I am, but I listen. I mean, Brett Johnson, Dollar Milkshake, Jeff Snyder, Eurodollar University. I've listened to just hours of these people talk because I'm trying to. They do all the hard work, and then I listen to them, and then I don't judge them for any piece of it they get wrong, because none of us can get any of it perfectly right. Well, there is a cheat code for that. If you just listen to everybody at the same time and blend it all together. I have an episode of my show I did called Cheating in Class. Go check that out. That's how I do it. I just cheat off all of them. And when one of them screws it up or whatever, it's fine. It's like, we're just doing the best we can. And you're giving me all this stuff you're producing for free. I love it. It's like Good Will Hunting, the scene where he's talking about the library card. And he's like, oh, you did this Ivy League. And when you're doing all of this, and when you're done, you realize you could have had the same education for like whatever the cost of the library card was. And that's very analogous to now. All of the greatest minds are online. You just have to get good at spotting them. And so, you know, I play that game, and I've been relatively confident. If you go look at like Cross-Border Capital and all of this is Raoul Paul's everything code. After listening to everybody talk, all the bulls, all the bears, and even though Raoul is often judged as a bull, hey, he's an optimist. He's a stoic. You know, it's like you can't really phase that. We're just in a good mood. For a lot of really good reasons, crypto is running right now, and it's happening right on schedule. Like that's the hilarious bit. And everything I'm hearing about the massive crash that's imminent, I actually don't think. I think we're going to get an event in Q2 that gives Powell and Yellen an excuse to cut rates, because these rates can't be this high. The system of money and markets and the global economy are no longer capable of sustaining 5%. It's why everything's just blowing up everywhere. But for a lot of really good reasons, they can't just say, oh, okay, well, we're just going to make rate zero again. There has to be a good excuse. Now, those people will explain it so much better than me. I'm always just like a kind of a half-assed student because of all of the schools, because I'm really trying to listen to everybody all at once. So go listen to them explain all that. But yeah, like if you're as you're hearing suddenly that Bitcoin's waking up and my thesis was always like since about 2018, first hearing Anatoly Yakovenko on a podcast with, what's his name from Dig Nation, Kevin Rose. I listened to Kevin Rose for years. I'm a talk radio guy. And I listened to him interview Toly while I was teaching myself crypto. And I'm like, 700,000 TPS, you say. Now that's a thing we can work with. And then I listened to every no sharding podcast there was, and I just got to know the guy. And it so happened, I'm just so like, if I could roll this character that I'm talking to you through, like if I could ask for all of the conditions to be just perfect for this moment, I would have not picked any other character. It's just perfect because, I mean, I was in my professional life, I was a hiring manager at I don't know where Intel was at, but I was a hiring manager at Intel for engineers that cost a lot of money, and I just millions of interviews in panels with other engineers who were way smarter and way better at engineering than me around me. Prepared, like I know how they sound. And I know when I listened to Vitalik Buterin talk, he was like a junior engineer who was wildly smart, but he was missing a lot of the things that I heard Anatoly. And because Anatoly he's very careful about how he, like, because he's rightly trying to promote us all being pretty cool to each other. And this all really being about Web3 being a thing that mankind can benefit from. And there's a whole bunch of really great things we're going to get out of it. And he values open source. And so some of it's that. But some of it, I would tell you, the part of the rascal in Anatoly Yakovenko that he can't escape is, I know somewhere deep down in that guy, he knows he already won. He knew it way back when mainnet went live. And I also think that by him winning in some capacity, that's appropriate. I mean, all of the work and effort that went into it should be like, there should be like, it's beautiful. It's cool that that project is going to work. But mostly, I'm really happy that the world has a Solana right now, like a free, practically system of decentralized transaction and smart contracts. Holy shit. So much shit is about to change, and it's going to be so awesome. So yeah, I mean, I kind of always saw, and now all of the, I saw Udi posted this really brilliant post about maximalism and how to think about it, and helping the Ethereum maxis through this time where they have to realize that Ethereum's always been a sandbox. It's never been production. So yeah, I think everything I was watching, because I listen to everybody. There's nothing is off. Like, if I'm not getting rich, diverse perspective, then I feel like I'm screwing up. I'm not cheating in class right. If I'm trying to maximize for cheating in class, I got to listen to everybody. So I listened to Hasib and what's his name? The guy with the glasses and the crazy hair, Tarun, I think his name is, something like that. And Tarun's like, oh, these just ugly NFTs. It's ridiculous. No, Hosib, I can't remember, the bald guy. Very smart sounding dude, but he couldn't go listen to the engineers talk like I can. So there's like a miss in the game early. Like, I think so much of his thesis is right, but that has always just been a sandbox. It's never been the production thing. So I don't know. I don't want to get into all that. I get pulled into the game. I like it. It's fun, but I'm not really money driven at all. And so, I mean, at this point, I don't have to do a 9-to-5 gig, and I have a very simple set of accommodations that I feel perfectly comfortable in. So now it's just like, it's fun. So I don't know. There's all kinds of thought and strategy and all that. And it's what I've optimized my hobbies for. It's like I spent my whole life optimizing for this hobby of understanding first crypto really well, then everything outside of crypto and how they relate to each other. And for everyone else, that'd be very boring. For me, total party. I loved it. So now everything's kind of starting to work out the way I was thinking it would. And it kind of pulls me back in. So like this week, and I was coming off a THC interval, and I tweeted to Tony Greer. I watch most of Real Vision stuff, most of Blockwork stuff, and Tony Greer has a Tuesday show he does with Maggie Lake. I like both of them. I just think they're cool characters, Like I think they know their stuff, and I learned a lot of. So I don't like trading. I don't like. I made a joke what did I tweet? I will read this tweet I did to Tony. It's hard to find stuff. I was tweeting like crazy this week. It's just so fun and so exciting. Everything's going to be fun again. So Tony Greer posted on November 8th, he said, I don't think traders realize how bullish this energy pullback / Fed pivot are for the stock market. If you want to timestamp me, let's talk November 2024. And he puts in the link for $SPY. And I replied, word, man, joy emoticon. And I see that desk of yours, and I think there's a guy who probably gets NFTs. Raffle emoji. Gonna leave this thing I gave Raul the other day. Do with it what you will. Bunch of you folks on Twitter and YouTube start to feel like buddies of mine that I've never actually met. You and Raul definitely in that basket for me. And shilling is a waste of time and doesn't even, I really don't think like this sort of thing I'm doing. I don't believe in wasting my time like trying to get somebody to buy some coin. Like it's not my game at all. I don't give a shit, And it's like, but no, I mean this felt like legit. What they say in the biz, alpha. This thing that I linked to Raul where I gave him sort of, I read back his thesis because I listened to Raul talk. I listened to his whole thing and I was already betting about NFT, the collectible stuff, the really early stuff is very analogous to like an out of the money call with no expiry on its denominator because it should always price up against its denominator. That's very logical to me. And ETH built that out, and when you see the stupid rock picture, the picture doesn't matter. And when I heard Tarun, Hasib, I can never remember whether it's H or M, said, like, okay, I get that everybody's on Solana buying it, but what are they doing there? There's all kinds of stuff to do. It's the same thing, only it's the production environment that's about to just blow the rails off your sandbox. And so like I've already gone way farther into this than I want to go. I'm going to cap myself at 24 minutes. So I got 4 minutes to wrap this up. I think in Twitter, it very is analogous to So the human collective conscious, a lot of people are weirded out thinking about things in that context, and I am not. I just see it as a much greater interconnect between humans, but I find it intolerably hard to... I am somebody who maximizes for hearing things people say in like 50 ways and then picking the way I like best. So Twitter is like the puzzle of damn puzzles, because people are only putting like this much context in, and I can hear everything everybody says a million ways, at least 50. And I'm like, that is so frustrating to try and it's a lot of why I started doing this, is I'm like, how do you guys even know who's like what anybody's trying to say without this? I certainly don't. And so, yeah, I mean, this really was me going, okay, I've learned a ton from Real Vision, and I like Tony. I think he's, I've seen him link stuff about, all these people are in my Twitter feed, and, he'll call out like Nirvana being overrated, and I can tell we're about the same age. And I was always like a Alice in Chains guy, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden. Like I would have rated all of those three above Nirvana, but Nirvana gets all the attention. I get that person. That's a guy I went to high school with, is what it feels like to me. Or a guy I worked with all these guys on the East Coast on these engineering teams. There's a bunch of I worked with these guys in Buffalo and a bunch in Boston, and there's like a faster way of talking that I just get a kick out of. and yeah, so I don't know. It seemed cool to be like, hey, TradFi dude, you have maximized for this. Let me sneak in as your buddy here and be like, have you checked out this angle? Because that gives somebody who taught me a lot maybe a way to get... Now, I don't know if it'll work. I gave them SMB equals punks, and I gave him bunk. I gave that to Raul, and probably ignore me. But Tony noticed. And, man, I hope he makes some money on it. That'd be awesome. Now, Tony, if you're listening, I have no idea when you sell that shit. I have no actually, what I do is, if you look very carefully at some of who I listen to, that'll help you. Those people are way smarter. They're optimizing for it. They're trying to master it and swing trade it. And I'm just playing a long game where I don't give a shit. And I just don't want to do that. But I thought it was a cool way to kind of help out a friend I'd never met. And so that's kind of good. But this thing can pull you into it. I mean, Twitter, you find yourself just scrolling. There's just, it's cool. There's just so much. Everyone will just drop some idea in your lap. And, oh, I never thought of that. Anyways, I figured I'd mention that because I know it's going to be on everyone's mind. And I started this whole thing with a whole bunch of, I think when I kind of moved beyond video games and like the WoW and all that, when I was of that age and sort of my early 30s, I went through a phase where I just really focused on life, and now I have a kid and I'm really focused on that. But then I still need the game a little bit, and the video games weren't there for me, so I needed something. And being software engineering manager, I felt like I had what it takes to go figure out crypto, and I did. 2017 was so damn early. So damn early, and there's people thinking, oh, I missed it. No, you did not. 2017 and the 2018 crash, the run-up to it just really, like, I'd been paying attention since about 2013, 14 hype. I'd been kind of like, I need to go figure that out. 2017, I was hiring engineers on a team where I had Rex approved, and I couldn't get anybody in the role. And I'm like, God, where are all the engineers? And then I go online, I'm listening to podcasts, and I think I came across Laura Shin first, way back in the day. She was doing it early. And I started getting a feel for the landscape. I taught myself Bitcoin using, what's his name? The crazy last name, Xenopoulos or whatever, that dude. He pretty much explained that. I got my aha moment from one of his talks. The books never work as well for me. I need this. I need to hear emotion, and I need gestures, I need facial expression, and I need, it just gives you so much more, I think. So, Andreas Antonopoulos, I believe is his name. And then I went and figured out Ethereum, and then I figured out, I started listening to all the people who had competing strategies. I looked at the block size wars. I just started diving into it deep and just studying for at least 5 hours a day because it's fun. I mean, I couldn't play video games. I was like, if I'd go for a walk, which is my jam for fitness, I got time to kill. I listen to smart people describe complicated shit. I love that. And so yeah, I mean, I'm getting too far into the weeds on it. I kind of want to wrap up just talking about crypto in general. I kind of want to, I'm at a place where I kind of want to just set that game. I already did, like basically in 2021 November-ish, like right after rates started adjusting down, and then I went to Breakpoint in Lisbon, and I didn't attend any of it. I mostly watched it from my room, and I realized I don't need to go to those. They're not really for me. I'm not trying to do that. But I did have some wild breakthroughs on the wisdom trek. So yeah, I mean, I went and figured out crypto, and then when crypto popped after I'd built a position, I'm like, okay, now I have to go understand everything outside of crypto, and that meant a sick amount of hours of following these macro guys, and I loved it. It was great. But then I kind of got to right around the time Raul was putting out his and all of this is me cheating off of everybody's papers. So it could have been directly, but it makes sense. The liquidity, the more cowbell, as he says, like that whole, if you go study how the shit works, he's not wrong. I mean, like about big people, it's so difficult to see. This is such a wild complexity, but that's the one that, I don't know. It makes a lot of sense to me. And it's so logical why right now suddenly things are moving forward again in that space. So I'm probably not going to talk about any of that much anymore. I'm just not as into it. Right after I felt like I kind of had it figured out, and it was just a waiting game for everybody to catch up, liquidity to come back, all of those dynamics, that's all happening now. So, and I think after this one, the way I've sort of positioned myself should be done. I don't think I have to worry anymore. It's like, now it's just, go work on the greatest game ever, which is wisdom. In parallel to all of this macro and crypto, I started the greatest game ever, which is understanding the universe, self, and everything in between. I have to smile as I say that. And I just started, first I started with philosophy. I really resonated with much of what I found in Roman Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius, meditations, all of that. And that was a gateway to understanding, like wanting to go back further and figure out like where did that come from, and that takes you to sort of you know, I skipped over Western teaching a lot. I think I thought I understood it because I grew up in it. I didn't understand any of it. And actually now when I have sort of a philosopher's stone, and that's just a model for understanding what everybody's saying, is how I think about it. I don't know. I'd have to go back because I didn't do the church. My mother was very deeply, she went to a Methodist church, and like every other weekend I'd have to go. And I remember just sitting there going, this is nonsense. But I think a lot of it was legitimately nonsensical. I think when I remember what a typical sermon was like, they weren't doing wisdom. They weren't like, hey, listen, guys, this thing they're saying, I think they're trying to say this in modern context. It was a lot of sort of blatant misinterpretation. And it's no wonder that none of it stuck. And so I really haven't spent a lot of time. I spent a little time on Kabbalah because I see a bunch there that's very rhymey with the old stuff. But I spent a bunch of time on Hermetics. This is the spiritual belief plus philosophy is how, like, the sages of old, it's really philosophy and wisdom. It's like zooming out and understanding what all of it means together. So, or that's how all of this is just how I think about it. State copy is about me just putting everything I've got in here up on the cloud. So it's very crucial for me to say, I don't really ever claim to be the one who's right. And if you look at like my wise words at the top of my Twitter profile, I really mean that stuff I say there. Like it's, and you only get to be right if you are composing with everybody else's perspective. That's the only thing that ever gets to be right. It's the thing we all agree to, sort of. So, I spent a lot of time on Alan Watts and understanding Buddhism. And so I skipped Christianity and Islam and Jewish faith pretty much. And I went straight back to Egypt from like the Marcus Aurelius days, the Plato, Socrates. I basically moved from there, and then I went to Egypt, and then figured out this Hermes Trismegistus character, and Gnosis, and there is a thing that is at the base of Hermetic teaching that is understanding, reconciling sort of cause and effect in the most healthy way possible. And I'm not sure I haven't figured out a way in my TLDR way to describe that properly. There's a gazillion people that'll explain it, but that is the most powerful unlock of it's sort of finding the neutral position between every extreme opposite and sort of loving each side. that's what occurs to me to say about it now. But I would say if you want like a key for understanding everything else that's being said, highly recommend going and just figuring that out. And not in a bullshit way where you think you get it, or you're just saying, well, because Hermes said it, or this teacher said it, or this guy on the internet said it. That is all bullshit. You can't just, it doesn't work if you're just going, I believe in it because they told me to. It only works if you actually figured out what the hell they're talking about. And you're, it's just deeply logical, the whole thing, the whole idea. I look at faith now as through an entirely different lens. When I grew up, I thought of faith like it was believing the person who told you Santa Claus was real. And I got to be quiet. My kid's in the other room with my girlfriend. And that always seemed like it's what broke everything for me. Is they told me faith was this really critical component that the whole thing is about. And I'm like, yeah, but you're just telling me to buy your story that doesn't make any sense to me. Much later on in life, I went and figured out, I kind of bypassed all of the teachers that are available, and I went and listened to all the ones from the past. All their words are there. And then I'm like, oh, now I get it. That is something very different. For me, faith is more like the mathematician with the proof. And I talked a lot about this in my life. I get repetitive, but each iteration I feel like is useful. It might provide more context. So if any of this is repetitive, I don't apologize. This is what damn thing's for. Yeah, like faith is where it's like, no, you're sure. Like you went, you did all the required reading, and then you did it 3 more times until you really grokked what was being said. And then you went back and you tested it. There's all these ways you can test this stuff in your life, in stories you hear being told around you. And it all just, it's like, oh, God, it's like suddenly you can hear the orchestra of it. So Alan Watts will break things down for you in this way, where what he's doing is, I think he passed away in the early 70s, but he's got a gazillion lectures where he will break down a lot of really complicated ideas. And a lot of what the old routes to figuring this stuff out required, crazy, fasting and meditating in a really uncomfortable position for 20 hours a day for 3 years. But it's all trying to get you to this place where Alan Watts will tell you, he'll tell you, or you can skip all that and I'll tell you it. But the words he says will just bounce right off your ears unless you go figure out what he's trying to say. But what's so cool about this moment we live in and this mechanism for disseminating information is you can get the people that will just say, okay, there's this really long-winded or very painstaking approach to getting knowledge, or you can just go talk to the person with an open mind and an open heart who did that work and let them explain it to you. And then you go, and very critically, you can't do that thing I just described where you just go, well, then I don't get it. I don't get it, but I'm going to pretend I do. That will not work. You have to get it. That's the whole point. So yeah, I don't know at this point. So now I'm backing up because I love all the context that I get. I started studying Islam and Christianity this week, and I'm a quick study. I'll blaze right through all that. And I'll reconcile them and I'll fit them in with Buddhism and everything I hear Alan Watts talk about and Hermes Trismegistus, and I'll squish it all together and I'll fit it into this model to where it fits. So this week, Sunday, November 12th, it seems appropriate to do one of these out loud. So this is kind of how I do it. And I got to about number 42 of these, and so in my feed, as I'm studying all this old stuff and taking it seriously, because there's so much brilliance I see in it now that I understand how to read it properly. Gospel of Thomas fell in my lap, and somebody with a YouTube channel, they're like, oh, the secrets have been just laid it. But there is something really fun about how the I've talked about this, how the Google algorithms for YouTube are kind of analogous to how like these ancient sages would just like a Lao Tzu or a Chuanzi would describe I don't know if those are the right two, but sort of law of attraction stuff. So you don't go learn law of attraction from Oprah. You learn it from these ancient sages. They'll explain it in a way where it makes sense. And so it's funny. This one fell in my lap this morning, and worked on homework a bunch and did my walk. So homework with my kiddo, and then I went and did my walk, and then I took my girls out for breakfast, and we came back, and now they're doing more homework. I can't believe how much homework a second grader has now. It's ridiculous. You guys are breaking our kids. I didn't have homework. I barely did homework when I was in high school. Stop doing this. Kids should just get to play when they're at home. Rant over. So they're in there doing reading assignment. And so I figured I'd sit down with this, and I'm picking apart Gospel of Thomas, because now I'm going back to Christianity. I kind of wrote it off. And now I'm going back and I'm listening to it. And this Jesus was a damn mighty sage, I tell you. And it's so cool because it gives me a new lens to view a lot of what I'm getting from Buddhist faith or practice and the others. And I did a like a TLDR on the history of Islamic faith, and I think I'm very hesitant to even talk about a lot of. We all get very sensitive about these things, and I just think we should be able to talk and share ideas. But I know that, like in that faith, the monotheistic faiths, where it's like it's this way or the highway. I've already talked at length about why I think that's a terrible frame. You need the contrast. It's beautiful. But yeah, I feel like I can speak openly about Christianity. I grew up in it. I grew up in the West. I grew up as Christianity died. I feel like these days it is so popular to be an atheist. Everybody's an atheist. For me to even be saying these words, I can hear people just going, he's talking about religious stuff. And it's so crazy because when I was a kid, it was not like that. Like this fourth turning has just wrung every bit of wisdom right out of us. And so anyways, when I go back and I read this guy Jesus, now you can think about him however you want. I think of him as a person like me. That's how he's described. Who there's a couple things, even right here in the Gospel of Thomas, that tells me he's very well versed in Hermetic teaching. Because he said, let me read a couple of these. So, Gospel of Thomas, translated by Thomas O. Lambden. I got this off of some site called market.edu. And it says, these are the secret sayings which the living Jesus spoke and which Didymos, Judas, Thomas wrote down. 1. And he said, whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not experience death. That's a really big one to dig into. I feel like I get what they're talking about. Because this is a collaboration. This is somebody writing down what somebody else said. So I'm going to say they. And that, I feel like, insulates me somewhat from how sensitive some people are about revering people and not just... I think we're all just the same thing. I think everybody has it in them, everything they need to be able to speak these words the first time. It takes a lot of work and study, but I think you can get there. And I think whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not experience death. In a way, there's so many lenses. I'm going to go back and do that same thing. I'm looking at this like a tweet. So now, through the lens of a tweet, I can say, well, maybe this guy was saying they convey some sort of magical powers that let you cheat death. Maybe he's saying something a lot more profound about how maybe this is much more a dream, and who we are as a cognitive agency that rides eternity through sort of life and death cycles, like a sine wave, and sort of learns through each new experience. Whoever finds the interpretation for themselves. So like right now, I'm giving you my interpretation of these. I'm going to go through them all. I feel like I've already been going 45 minutes. And I got to go back and be with my family. But I'll do maybe the first set of these that I read through. But whoever finds the interpretations of these sayings will not experience death. There's ways like, kind of right here, what I'm doing is also another third way to interpret this is I'm in state copy, I'm putting all of this character, Curtis Cobb, onto the cloud, and I'm open sourcing it for anybody to interact with in the metaverse forever, potentially. There's a way I can look at it like he's talking right to me, you know? And there's also a lens I can look at it where this thing I'm doing is the interpretation he's talking about. And if you took the time to hear me out, then you could create something like this and sort of evade death. There's also another lens you can look at it where it's like he's saying, by getting somebody to level their wisdom game enough to understand what I'm writing here, they're going to carry these words. I mean, this was written down 2,000 years ago plus. This is the way I look at it. So, okay, next tweet. So Jesus said, let him who seek continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and he will rule over thee all. Now, it's really interesting that he says, that, because that's hermetics. I mean, that's Jesus of Nazareth, the one we all grew up hearing about, referring to teachings. Like, how did he do it? Like, if he's a human like me or you can say, oh, well, he was, there was the divine birth, and you can say that, like, however you think of God, impregnated the Virgin Mary, and Jesus was the product. And then he just kind of, like, even at, like, have you ever thought about what, like, 7-year-old Jesus was like? I don't hear any writings or any talk of that, but I know 7-year-olds. I was one, and I've got one right now. And it's like, it would really shock me if all of the first part of that, and there was the Immaculate Conception, that's the word I wanted, immaculate. I think it's people getting too stuck in a lot of the telephone gang and the story amplification and the fandom of a sage. But there's also, if you look back, a lot of evidence that Jesus traveled to, there's at least a contingent of us that thinks he spent a whole bunch of time in the East learning Hindu and Buddhist teachings. Like, he seemed, and I haven't gotten to it. I'm just at the beginning of catching up on this particular sage. But specifically where he says the all, and he capitalizes the A in all, and that's from the manual. And I don't know. There's a lot of translation of a translation happening here, but that is very specific to, like, Hermes Trismegistus. That is, the all is how the Egyptians thought about God, and it's very sort of panpsychist, sort of. I'll do a horrible job. Like, I don't need to know how to squish it into whatever the terms are that the academic part of society wants to call that. The gist is that we're sort of in an ocean of cognitive agents that are all doing a thing together, and it connects through each state, through time also. It's a big idea. But because he said that, I'm like, okay, now I have a lens. So this is somebody who understands Gnostic teachings and knows, and this is really cool too. Like, number 3 here, Jesus says, if those who lead, well, before I move to 3, number 2, let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. That's sage talk for be a lifelong learner, really dig this thing I'm doing here, be into it, and it's inevitable that you will get to that understanding. When he becomes troubled, he will become established, and he will rule over the all. I think what the more fantastic parts of the story of this guy, I equate to maybe he figured out a level of state optimization where he harmonized him so well with all that he sort of became a personification of everybody and every atom in every grasshopper and every fish and every human and every rock, all parts of all things. He just sort of harmonized with it perfectly. Frequency and vibration, like Nikola Tesla would say, is once you understand that, and through a philosophical lens, it's like that's the key. This is so big. I'm never going to get to 42 on it. I think I'll just go through some set of these that I feel like I can do, but then I'll chain them all together as a series. So from number 2 here, I'm quite certain that the speaker is quite well informed on Egyptian theology and philosophy. And I think what they're saying, the directive in it, as I read it now, tomorrow I might feel totally different about this, and that's okay. Today, what occurs to me to think and how I can hear it is that's what they're saying. Now, where was this? When I went to church as a kid, there was nobody just like breaking it down simple. And it was always like, Jesus was a fisher of men. And they were very caught up in the sort of, the poetry of it, the words, like, but the conclusions they drew from it while I was there just seemed like a bit nonsensical to me. Like some of them, the real common sense ones, those came through, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Treat people right. Yeah, I'm on board. I like that. But then, so much of the rest of it just felt like really focusing on. I shouldn't say that. I would love to go back, actually, to the specific place, and I would like to just listen to a bunch of those again and sit down and talk with the minister or whatever they were called in the Methodist Church, and see whether they actually, like, where they're going with it, and talk about it through an educated lens. Not educated. Just one where I feel like I get so much more of the context and it makes so much more sense. Anyways, number 3, Jesus said, if those who led you say to you, see the kingdom in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, it is the sea, then the fish will precede you. And precede, I wonder if that is a direct translation of come before you. And I wonder if that is pointing at how if you're being led, you will see things through the leader's lens. So see the kingdom is in the sky, and the kingdom, I'm thinking of that as sort of a place of it's like once you twist your brain into a great big Tai Chi 2, and not just your brain is all of you. I don't mean this way we in the West and modern society think about it. I mean something a little bit more profound than that, more than just your ego. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. This is Gnostic teaching. This is definitely Hermetics. This is, and this is where I think he says it. Let's see. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you. It is inside of you, and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father. But if you will not know yourselves, you dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty. And this is know thyself. This is thinking you are your ego and not something. My last step, I want to just compose with all of that everything I said in my last vlog about ego and the assemblage point and seeing yourself as you've always thought of you more like a video game character for something that is a lot bigger, that is learning through this experience, is the right way to, that's what a lot of that's what I think 3 is getting at, is he's trying to teach that you need to figure out you need to, in order to progress in your evolution, you have to reach that point. Like, you have to get to where you see yourself as being able to evolve into Jesus himself. Like, you have to be able to try and reverse engineer that wisdom and say it's appropriate for all of us to try and do that. And of course, that would be much of our purpose. Like, it shouldn't be just for the cool kids or for the, like, someone who speaks like this man does knows that you never want to elevate yourself in any way. He would not have ever seen himself as superior in any way. He would have just seen himself as having a much clearer lens of everything. Like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll think something different about it next time I go through it. I often do. 4, Jesus said, "The man old in days will not hesitate to ask a small child 7 days old about the place of life, and he will live. For many who are first will become last, and they will become one and the same." This speaks to, this is again, Gnostic teachings and Hermetics, the serpent eating its tail, how everything's connected. And this is not it's also like cheat codes for life when you are hungry for outside perspective always, even, and when you look at like how how old was even small children, 7 days old, for lessons, because they're there if you look for them. There's so much you can learn from just watching an infant figure out how to its fingers work, and there's so much there. I think that's what he's saying. 5, Jesus said, "Recognize what is in your sight, and that which is hidden from you will become plain to you. For there is nothing hidden which will not become manifest." I think he's saying something about how we accept a lot of constraints around how we perceive the world, and a lot of earlier stuff I've said about state optimization, where you're trying to set up your real-time interpreter to be super optimized, and such that you see more when you look around. Like now, when I see somebody being rude to somebody else, I don't go, that person's an a-hole and I never want them in my life or them around me. I go, that person has been squished into having a very bad day. And the formula is not to cut them out or to say something rude back or butt your way in and compound it. The way it's to be very understanding. It's like, oh man, I once had a shit day. I know what you're getting at. And be for them, there for them, and have empathy and kindness. It automatically diffuses that, and it makes potentially the worst day somebody else is having around you an amazing day. And you bring that, and you don't do it in a preachy way, and you don't tell them why they shouldn't behave that way, or why they're in the wrong for being rude. You just try and help them, cheer them up, and in a light way where you hear them, and then you say something funny that pulls them out of it. And that's hard. I wouldn't say I'm great at it, but I try. And I really do think he's saying something profound there about how wisdom can let you see so much more data. It lets you see so much more of seeing why that person is rude, seeing all the causes and immediately forgiving those causes and their effect in that rudeness you're witnessing. 6, his disciples questioned him. And said to him, "Do you want us to fast? How shall we pray? Shall we give alms? What diet shall we observe?" Jesus said, "Do not tell lies, and do not do what you hate. For all things are plain in the sight of heaven. For nothing hidden will not become manifest, and nothing covered will remain without being uncovered." So he's saying a lot there that's really important. When you tell lies and you spend your life doing things you hate, you develop what in the Eastern faiths they call negative karma. And you just, you build up a lot of like dislike for the character you're playing. Again, this is from the looking at yourself more as just like a character that your soul is playing. And if you rack up all this negative karma, it's so hard to get yourself out of it. And it's not a magical thing. It's like if you don't like yourself because you know you're being a dick, you can't move forward. And you will always see that, like, you will see everything through the least healthy lens, and you can't progress in any way. It's really a cheat code for wisdom progression, enlightenment, etc. If you can develop a habit of lots of integrity. And some people take this a bit far, I would say. But you have to find the balance that works for you. It's mostly about you liking you. I did an episode ages back I called Intellectual Decadence, where I looked at veganism, and I looked at where that comes from, of a place of trying to, if you think about it, you're just murdering the hell out of a whole bunch of veggies and plants, and I've come to revere those plants every bit as much as the cow or the sheep or the chicken or the pig. I see it as part of nature that we all interact in this way, and I don't really judge. I'm going on a big tangent from where that started, but there is something to be said about virtue signaling doesn't work for enlightenment. So you should look at if veganism is your path to liking the character that is you, that's great. But you shouldn't spend any time judging anybody else who doesn't have those concerns. I grew up on a farm. If you listen to that episode, it describes very well my takes on it. And I had a carnitas skillet that was delicious for breakfast. But why would I wait? If I had a salad, I'd be just murdering a whole bunch of plants would have died. And it seems awfully arrogant of me to weigh one of their lives as being more valuable just because I relate more to how they do walking around and talking and stuff. I guess oinking. I don't know. This path is not about what anybody else thinks. It's about what you think. And if you need to value the pig's life over the broccoli's life to like yourself and feel like you're a good person and to erase a bunch of negative karma, then you should do that. But I don't think you should waste a minute of your time being mad at somebody else. Now, go listen to that episode. I also am totally not on board with hurting stuff. And factory farming looks like hurting stuff. I'm not into that at all. But it's like, I don't know. This is all a very... that thing. This, and I think I'm going to end here for the day because that's a really... meditate on that. I'm a person who only really has kindness in his heart for everyone. I don't really blame anybody for how this is working out, you know? And yeah, I had a bite of a sausage even. And I'm very thankful. I don't know. Like I could go into that. Like if anybody wanted to dig into that further with me, I would. I wouldn't want to do it in an argumentative way. I'm not interested in telling you what you should do. I'm telling me what I need to do to progress in my own evolution. I can't be bogged down in this balancing match of why I should care more about how one cognitive agency type is being valued over another. And I think there's just so much evidence to me that the universe is not like that's strictly about, that's between you and your food. And I would never want to step in there. But number 6 here is, I just use food as an example. It's really everything. It's your sex life. It's how you interact with others in business, and in how you treat your family. 6 is profound, and it's most of what it is on a real path of enlightenment. Is you have to like yourself. You have to like the character, and if you don't, you're stuck. You're just going to be going to bed every night, torturing yourself over what a shit you've been. You don't want that. You're totally stuck while you're doing that. Yeah, we'll start with number 7, maybe next Sunday. Everybody, just have a fantastic week, and I love you.